The NFL's legal tampering period of free agency has begun, and the Commanders have lost their first free agent this offseason. Let's get to the breaking news. We have Commanders breaking news coming out of Ashburn, Virginia. For an update, we go to the Ref the District studios. Here's the Stoner. Greetings and salutations, and welcome to this breaking news alert here on Ref the District. I'm the Stoner. Thanks for everybody for checking in here on our show to see what's happening in NFL free agency. This is one of the best times of the offseason as we get closer to the draft, and NFL free agency legal tampering has begun. So it's not the actual time when guys can sign, but they can agree to terms. Let's not forget that anybody can back out of these deals, but of course they won't, because they have pretty much agreed to these deals. And it's no different here in Washington. As you saw in the videos earlier from Nathan, Washington signed a couple of Cowboys, a defensive end and a center, which were two major needs for this football team. And now maybe there is a need here in Washington for a running back, because the breaking news is that free agent running back Antonio Gibson has signed with the New England Patriots. If you like this video and you want more of this content, make sure you hit that like and hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on audio, make sure you leave a rating and review. We appreciate everybody for checking in. Give you all the latest news here on Ref the District for the Commanders, and it's going to be a frenzy for the next few days just because of what's going on in free agency, and we are all over it. So make sure you keep checking in with us. Now, when we started talking about free agents for Washington in the 2020 class of guys who are going to be free agents now, guys like Cam Curl and, of course, Antonio Gibson, James Smith-Williams, guys like that who were in that 2020 free agent class. Of course, Chase Young was in that class, but he has already been traded. I would have bet, and I think most of us all would have bet, that Antonio Gibson was going to be one of the guys who was going to move on to another team. And if you are a bettor, make sure you go to Bet Online, because it continues to be your number one source for all of your wagering needs, including basketball, pro and college hoops throughout this entire year. Up to the minute odds, trends, follow your favorite team's path to the playoffs, and with in-game live betting contests and all the best player props. Experience the world's best wagering platform anytime from your desktop or your mobile devices. Head to Bet Online today to become part of the team, and remember to use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts here. Let's get into it. Let's talk about, why is Antonio Gibson no longer here? Why did Washington let him go? Why did the Patriots sign him? That's two different things. If you're looking at the glass half empty, why did they let him go? Right? There's a whole bunch of reasons why Washington decided to go ahead and let him go. And we'll get into some of those particulars of when he was here. Of course, he was a third-round draft pick out of Memphis in 2020. There's a lot of high hopes for him. He was primarily a wide receiver at Memphis. Kick return is where he really made his bones. His speed was something that really stood out to a lot of teams, but he wanted to classify as a running back going into the draft. So he was drafted as a running back. You can say Ron Rivera didn't use him properly, or you can say possibly that he just didn't live up to his potential, but he spent 4 years here with Washington and he was fairly productive. You can't kind of take away some of the good things that he did here in Washington. His rookie year was awesome. If you remember that rookie year for Washington, which was 2020, which was the COVID year, and he rushed for 795 yards and had another 247 yards receiving. He had 11 rushing touchdowns that year in 14 games. Think about that for a minute. That's a lot of touchdowns. That's very productive. And so there was big time hopes coming for him in 2021 for Washington. He was there for all 16 games, but he got benched a couple of times. Why? He had a fumbling issue. Just a little bit of a fumbling issue. He fumbled 6 times, lost 4 fumbles. Some of them came at critical points on the field that really cost Washington. So that was something that he started to lose a little bit of favor with fans and, of course, coaches. So he did get benched a couple of times. But he did rush for 1,000 yards that year in 16 games in 2021. He had 1,037 yards, 7 touchdowns. Again, another 294 yards receiving and 3 more touchdowns. So he had 10 touchdowns his first year, 10 touchdowns his second year. That's pretty darn good. Coming into his third year, everybody was kind of talking about, can he fix his fumbling issue? Well, guess what? He could. He could in 2022. But let's not forget, in that offseason, in the draft of that year, that's when Washington went out and drafted Brian Robinson Jr. Well, so if you're going to draft Brian Robinson Jr., then you're going to see your carries drop. So if a team, again in the third round, drafts a Brian Robinson Jr., that's a little bit of writing on the wall for you. You're not our guy for the long-term future. Of course, his carries went way down. His starts went way down. His receiving went up a little bit because he kind of became a little bit more of that third down back as J.D. McKissick was hurt most of the year. And so he came in and got a lot of those third down receiving plays out of the backfield. But he did have 546 yards and 3 touchdowns, and then another 353 and 2 touchdowns. So he had another 5 touchdowns in 2023, but we were expecting so much more. And his fumbling went away. He had 1 fumble and didn't lose any. Of course, he had less touches, understood, but his fumbling issues kind of went away. I think that was a little bit overblown. But then in his 4th year, which is last year, and it was just a bad year for everybody, his carries went way down as Brian Robinson got first down carries, second down carries. He only had 65 carries for 265 yards and 1 touchdown. His receptions went up again. So he had a career high 48 receptions and a career high 389 yards receiving this past year. But that's what the role he was relegated to, as Brian Robinson proved that he could catch the ball out of the backfield. So Antonio Gibson kind of became an afterthought. And so Washington obviously has decided to move on from Antonio Gibson. Again, maybe he was underutilized by the offense that was first Scott Turner in those first 3 seasons. And then, of course, Eric Bieniemy last year. Ron Rivera was in charge of the entire team that whole time. Maybe they just didn't use him properly. Who knows? The problem is he is a classic tweener. He is a guy who he's not shifty enough to just be a third down back because he's a straight line guy. He's a guy who can make plays on the kick returns. That's what he does well. He's a straight line speed guy. He's not shifty enough to be a third down back. He's also not a guy who is durable. Not durable is not the right word. He's just not built to be a between the tackles every down back either. And he's just not experienced in that. And then also he's just not talented enough to be a wide receiver, an every down wide receiver. So what is he? He doesn't seem to fit any of those things for Washington. So Washington decided to let him go. But what are the Patriots getting? They're getting a lot of upside with Antonio Gibson. If you look at it from a glass half full from the Patriots, they're getting a dynamic player who has a ton of potential, who doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on his body either. He's still a young guy. So he's only, how old actually is he going to be this year? He's going to be 25. He's going to be 26 by the time the season starts. That's prime right now. And so Antonio Gibson is going to the Patriots, and he should be their number 1 back at this point. He's going to be their featured back, every down back in New England. Who knows who the quarterback's going to be with Mac Jones gone. But the free agent running back market, crazy this offseason. At the time of this recording, because more stuff could probably happen, Josh Jacobs has signed with the Packers. He hasn't signed. Sorry, it's legal tampering, so he has agreed to sign with the Packers. So the Packers said, Aaron Jones, you're gone. Aaron Jones is out there for anybody to have. But Aaron Jones is a number 1 back. He does have an injury history. He is getting older. So we'll see where he ends up. Saquon Barkley, of course, is now going to go sign with the Eagles, which is crazy. Not great for Washington. You think you're getting rid of him out of the division by leaving New York, but nope, he's going right into Philadelphia. DeAndre Swift is going to the Bears. He's going to be signing with the Bears. So he's going to leave the Lions after starting off with going from the Eagles. Oh, man, can't keep up with all these guys. Devin Singletary is going to go to the Giants to replace Barkley. Gus Edwards is going to the Chargers, so that means Austin Eckler is going to be available. Of course, he was already a free agent, but then Josina Anderson just reported that Washington does have interest in Austin Eckler. Running backs are going all over the place. It's crazy this market this offseason to see all these running backs just switching teams and going to all these different teams. But we're going to see what's going to happen with Washington. Of course, right now, they did not sign Derek Gore in this offseason. Of course, Jarrett Patterson had left, is going to leave again. So basically what you have is you have Brian Robinson and you've got Chris Rodriguez Jr. Those are your two backs. They got to sign somebody. And I don't know if Eckler is the guy. Eckler is an every down back, right? But he's had a lot of wear and tear, so maybe he'll agree to be a third down back here in Washington. Who knows? And, of course, Aaron Jones is now out there, and he's a guy who's an every down back as well. But, again, a lot of wear and tear on him. But those two guys can make things happen. We'll see if Washington wants to give those guys a lot of money, or they're going to go right back into the draft and get somebody, or just sign a lesser running back, a lesser known running back, to be that third down back to Brian Robinson's every down back. It's been a crazy start to the legal tampering period in NFL free agency. A lot still to happen. Again, hopefully you checked out Nathan's video on the two guys from the Cowboys that they agreed to sign, the defensive end and the center, which is pretty exciting because those are two guys, obviously, that Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. know very well from their time with the Cowboys. So it's weird because we're giving them a pass for doing really the same thing that Ron Rivera did when he got here and started signing a bunch of ex-Panthers. It's the same thing, but we're giving him a pass because we have a lot more faith, because we saw it failed with Rivera, and we just have a lot of faith that Dan Quinn is not going to make the same coaching mistakes that Ron Rivera did, or the same player personnel mistakes. But these are two young guys that they brought in who are very highly regarded. These are not guys who are just kind of hanging around and, the Trey Turner types and the guys that, Thomas Davis, guys who are washed up or really can't play. These two guys are young. Guys have motors. And so if you hopefully you checked out that video. And of course, make sure you check us out all the time here on Ref the District. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're listening on audio, leave a rating and review. We appreciate all of that and all of you for checking us out here. And of course, this has been brought to you by Bet Online. We are Ref the District on the Believe Network. And until next time, be a fan.